Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The US Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Chris Dell, 2004 to 2007, sent a cable back to Washington informing his bosses there of what he really thought about Morgan Tsvangirai, this aspiring Zimbabwean opposition leader. And this is what he said. Morgan Tsvangirai is a flawed figure, not readily open to advice, indecisive, and with questionable judgment. He wrote this as a top secret for only his bosses in USA. It wasn't meant for public consumption. And he went on to say, it is an indispensable element for opposition success, but possibly an albatross around their neck once in power. He said this before Tsvangirai got into power. He was ambassador 2004 to 2007, as I said. And yet, this is exactly what has happened. Morgan Tsvangirai and his opposition MDC leaders have become the albatross, a milestone round the nation's neck, dragging us deeper and deeper into the abyss. This is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Ben, welcome to the program.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. One thing I would say is Morgan Tsvangirai gave hope to a hopeless nation. But was Ambassador Chris Dell correct? The answer is yes. I think he was very correct because we've got the historical facts there now. Whatever you said came to pass. I mean, we may decide to paint Morgan Tsvangirai a saint, but
that I don't
he
know.
was no saint. He was really no saint. I mean, questionable decisions. He did that. During the GNU, he was the one that went and reported a SADC representative that was pushing for reforms to Mugabe. He is the same guy that went against his own party constitution and appointing a third vice president, which now led to this mess that we are in, where the opposition fought amongst themselves, suing each other and so forth, fighting for the party. It was all on Tsvangirai. And I think the final blow was the man was no longer well. We all saw it. And we all prayed for him, but we could see that, the writing was on the wall. The one thing a true Democrat could have done was pass on the baton to the next guy. He didn't do that. He died in power. Just like Mugabe wanted to die in power. So we have to call a spade, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is. We like to rewrite history. That is where our problem is. We would like to rewrite history to suit our own narrative. But the facts remain facts. Whether you look at in the dark, in the daylight, under the water. Fact is a fact. Morgan Tsvangirai was an indecisive character. You could not trust him. This is why you found so many factions, splits, and everything. And up to today, he is also part of the problem why you find the opposition has self-imploded. That is the truth.
Well, taking the rounds on social media is the following video clip.
Which Alan came from. I don't even know him. I was the vice chairperson of the MDC Alliance, as constituted by an election that was done in Guero in May 2019. In all our activities and political activities as a political party, I have never seen him. I've never come across him. And also the issue that later happened is that I later played a very prominent role as the chairperson of the party, because my senior Tabitha Kumalo was no longer feeling well because of the cancer attack that happened to her. So in most of the cases, I was handling the chairmancy office by myself. I have never come across him. I was shocked that 2 days ago, somebody who is currently getting medication in India did send me a message that, no, do you still remember we once met you in Ulawa when you were having your a National Standing Committee retreat meeting where you met a group of people from Matebeleland that included Dr. Gordon Moyo, Abednego Bebe, Clayton, and others. They were saying, Chavangu was there. I said, no, I didn't notice, because they just came as a group of about 20 people at that meeting. And at that meeting, they were having their personal interaction with Nelson Chamisa, who was the president of the MDC Alliance. And ourselves were just witness.
There's no need for me to play it all. The point here is that the opposition seems to be obsessed with this case, with this issue of Savangu. I need to say it here loudly and clearly that Savangu is a sideline. If you look at what happened to MDC, the worst thing they ever did was that during the GNU of 2008 to 2013, they failed to implement even one token reform. And ever since the GNU debacle, they participated in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. And if you follow the history properly, you come to the point where 2023 elections went ahead. Various CCC members contested in those elections, knowing fully well that that the process is flawed, and that contesting will only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. They contested out of greed. And even when SADC and the AU election observer condemned that process, those CCC leaders went ahead and took up their seats. This Sengezo Savangu came onto the scene only after those CCC leaders had taken up their seats, when he started recalling some of them. But by that time, the damage had already been done. So why some people are still obsessed with Savango? Beggars belief. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier on. That we have got a problem here of corrupt, incompetent liars and conmen in the form of the MDC, CCC leaders. Utterly useless. And yet we have got some people who still continue to follow them blindly. And worse still, the same individuals are now trying to pick Savango, who is an entity. He's of no relevance whatsoever. When you look at the 2 points at which the real damage was done, i.e. failing to implement reforms during the GNU, participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy, Savango was not there. So why is he becoming important now? We have a problem. We have a problem of poor opposition leadership. And we've got a problem with the electorate themselves, the followers themselves, who, even with the benefit of hindsight, with the benefit of a mountain of information, they still fail to see Nelson Chamisa and company for who they really are. Corrupt, incompetent, liars, and conmen. That is the truth.
Just like ZANU-PF, CCC, MDC, they are very quick to distance the problems they created from themselves. They like to be like, Pontius Pilate, who washes his hands and say, I am clean, but yet has taken that decision. Even if you were to involve Chavango was part and parcel of them. I mean, the evidence is there. They cannot say, of course, yes, he may not have been the Secretary General, but he was part and parcel of the opposition. The evidence is there, pictures, whatever, is all there. But like you said, it's really of no relevance because the damage was already done. The wound was already there and the rot had already set in. When I look at the opposition throughout the whole years, I would like to start from the very beginning. Who was MDC? What is it all about? Why did we come to form this organization? And as the name suggests, the movement for democratic change. What change? Reforms. That was all it was all about. Reform a broken down system. Not be part of the system. The moment they decided and the moment they thought that, they were popular, they could actually run a government, that is when they lost their heads. They completely lost it. And they forgot their founding principles, their mission and their vision. And from there, it was participate in elections, no matter what cost. And to the people of Zimbabwe, you were there, you witnessed them all stand up and say, this time we will win. Not only Chamisa, Morgan Tsvangirai did the same thing. Sikala did the same thing. And they knew they were lying. They knew they would never win rigged elections. But they knew there were parliamentary seats there were councillor seats, and there was the bonus for participating that their organization would get. That was the main reason. Every time we are participating in rigged elections, it must be known that it is never about winning an election. It is about securing seats. Because we had, you know, Senator Komichi grace us, and he himself actually said, we don't even know how the presidential, ballots are counted and where they are counted. So if you don't know as an organization, how did you expect to win it? But they know where and how councillors and MPs are. That was all that they were in it for. The people of Zimbabwe have been truly, truly slow in catching and figuring out the truth. Up to a point where I am now thinking that they are in self-denial. They just don't want the truth. They know it, but they don't want it. Hence, they would rather inflict more pain on themselves. Because our continuous participation in rigged elections will perpetuate our suffering. We will never leave this, our current state, for anything better, as long as we keep doing what we are doing. So I guess now it is a question of, so what next? We have to just accept that we are what we are, and we stay as a failed nation because we have refused treatment. We have refused help at every corner. It's sad. We are at a very lowest point in our history as Zimbabwe, where we find now ZANU PF, MDC, Triple C, and all other opposition movements are sitting around the table, and poor Zimbabweans are at the bottom or at the floor waiting for the scraps that drop from the master's table. But it is our own doing. It is our own doing because we are failing to accept the truth. We are actually at a state where we want to rewrite history so that we protect the thugs that are at the top. We're in trouble.
Well, I'd like to reiterate what I said at the beginning. Ambassador Dell came to the conclusion that Morgan Tsvangirai was a flawed character. And if he should ever get into power, he'll become albatross, a milestone around the nation's neck. He was right. MDC, Triple C did come into power. They were in the GNU. And instead of implementing the reforms to end the dictatorship, they did nothing. And after the GNU, they've been conning people to participate in flawed elections to perpetuate the dictatorship. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. And we, the people, even after 25 years of data, seeing the performance of these opposition leaders, the very fact that we still fail to see them for who they really are speaks volumes. Nations get the government they deserve. Like it or not, we Zimbabweans deserve this tyrannical, corrupt, incompetent, and murderous ZANU-PF dictatorship, complete with its equally corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless MDC, CCC opposition. That is the reality. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.